In a quiet corner of Ashwood, a modest town surrounded by dense woods, 5 friends, Zayn, Hamza, Tariq, Bilal, and Saad, found themselves gathered around a flickering campfire one chilly autumn evening. Their lives had grown busy with work and responsibilities, but this evening was different. It was a reunion, a chance to reminisce about the days of their youth when the world felt boundless and every night was filled with adventure. "Do you remember the old clearing in the woods?" Zayn asked, tossing a small branch into the fire. "The one where we found that broken sword?" Tariq replied, leaning back against a tree. "Yes," Zayn said, his eyes gleaming with nostalgia. "What if we visited it again? One last adventure before life pulls us even further apart." The idea was met with immediate excitement. The clearing had been their secret haven as children, a place where they played knights and bandits, built forts, and dreamed of heroic quests. Now, as grown men, the thought of revisiting it stirred something deep within them. The Forgotten Path. The next morning, they set out, each carrying a backpack filled with essentials. The woods had changed since they were kids. Trees had grown taller, paths had vanished, and nature had reclaimed much of the area. Hamza, the most resourceful of the group, took the lead, using an old map they had drawn as children. As they ventured deeper, the group fell into familiar patterns. Tariq, ever the joker, lightened the mood with his witty remarks. Saad, the quiet one, offered occasional words of wisdom. Bilal, the strongest of the group, took on the role of protector, clearing fallen branches and helping the others over obstacles. "Do you think the sword will still be there?" Zayn asked, his voice tinged with anticipation. "If it is, I'm claiming it this time," Bilal said, flexing his muscles jokingly. As they walked, memories resurfaced of the time Hamza had fallen into a creek trying to catch a frog, or when Tariq had scared them with tales of a ghost wandering the woods. Discovery. After hours of navigating through dense undergrowth and crossing small streams, they finally reached the clearing. It looked smaller than they remembered, but the memories flooded back as they stood in silence, taking it all in. In the center of the clearing, partially buried under leaves and dirt, was the broken sword they had found years ago. Zayn picked it up, brushing off the dirt. Though rusted and dull, it still carried the weight of their childhood dreams. "This was our Excalibur," Tariq said, his voice filled with wonder. "More like a glorified butter knife," Hamza quipped, earning a laugh from the group. As they explored the area, Saad stumbled upon something unusual, a stone slab hidden under moss. Intrigued, they worked together to clear it, revealing strange carvings and a small opening underneath. "What is this?" Bilal asked, his brows furrowing. Hamza examined the carvings. "It looks like some kind of old hideout, maybe from a time when people lived off the land here." Zayn, ever the curious one, suggested they investigate. Using their flashlights, they peered into the opening and discovered a tunnel leading underground. Into the depths. The tunnel was narrow and damp, but curiosity drove them forward. As they descended, the air grew colder, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed through the darkness. The tunnel eventually opened into a small chamber, its walls lined with shelves holding ancient artifacts, tools, scrolls, and small wooden boxes. "This is incredible," Saad whispered, his voice barely audible. Hamza carefully examined one of the scrolls, but the writing was in an unfamiliar script. Tariq, meanwhile, opened one of the boxes to find a collection of carved wooden figurines. "Whoever built this place was hiding something important," Zayn said, running his fingers over the carvings on the wall. In the center of the room was a pedestal with an ornate key. Its intricate design hinted at something valuable it was meant to unlock. "What do you think it opens?" Bilal asked. "Only one way to find out," Hamza replied, pocketing the key. The secret unveiled. As they made their way back to the surface, the sun was setting, casting the clearing in an amber glow. Back at their campsite, they speculated about the purpose of the hidden chamber and the key's significance. The next morning, they decided to explore further. Guided by the carvings they had seen in the chamber, they retraced their steps to another part of the woods. After hours of searching, they came across an old stone structure, what appeared to be the remains of a watchtower. Inside the tower, they found a locked chest buried beneath rubble. Hamza pulled out the key and inserted it into the lock. With a satisfying click, the chest opened to reveal its contents: a collection of letters, maps, and a journal detailing the life of a man named Ibrahim, who had lived centuries ago. The legacy of Ibrahim. Ibrahim's journal spoke of a time when Ashwood was a frontier settlement. He had been part of a group dedicated to protecting the town from external threats. The artifacts in the hidden chamber were tools and treasures they had used to carry out their missions. But what struck the friends most was Ibrahim's philosophy. True strength lies not in individual power, but in the bonds of brotherhood. Together, we can overcome any challenge. The journal ended with a challenge to whoever found it: carry forward the legacy of unity and protection. Stand together as we once did. The words resonated deeply with the group. We could do this, Zayn said. We could honor their legacy. We've always been stronger together. The others nodded, a spark of determination lighting their eyes. A new brotherhood. The friends returned to Ashwood with a renewed sense of purpose. Drawing inspiration from Ibrahim's story, they decided to form a group dedicated to helping their community. Hamza used his organizational skills to coordinate efforts. Tariq brought humor and charm, winning over even the most skeptical townsfolk. Bilal's strength made him a natural leader during physical tasks, while Saad's quiet wisdom helped them navigate difficult decisions. Zayn, the dreamer, was the visionary who kept them motivated. They started small, repairing broken playgrounds, cleaning up neglected areas, and helping elderly residents with their chores. Word of their efforts spread, and soon others began joining their cause. Trials and triumphs. Their biggest challenge came when a developer tried to cut down a section of the woods to build luxury apartments. The woods, a symbol of their childhood and the community's history, were under threat. The friends rallied the town, organizing protests and using Ibrahim's maps to prove the historical significance of the area. Hamza's resourcefulness uncovered old legal documents protecting the woods, and Tariq's charisma swayed public opinion. After months of struggle, the developer backed down, and the woods were preserved. The victory solidified their bond and inspired them to take on larger challenges. They called themselves the Brotherhood of Ashwood, a nod to both their childhood and Ibrahim's legacy. The unseen bonds. Years later, as they sat around a campfire in the clearing, Bilal said, "Do you think Ibrahim would be proud of what we've done?" Zayn nodded. "I think he would. And I think we've proven that the real treasure wasn't the sword or the chest. It was us, all along." The fire crackled, casting long shadows across the clearing. Though their lives had taken different paths, they knew they would always return to this place, the heart of their brotherhood. For Zayn, Hamza, Tariq, Bilal, and Saad, the journey had been about more than rediscovering their childhood. It had been about finding their purpose, and in doing so, creating a legacy of their own. They had uncovered the true meaning of strength, not in wealth or power, but in the unbreakable bonds of friendship. And for that, they were richer than they had ever imagined. The town of Greyforge was known for two things: its sprawling train yards and the legends of the Iron Road, a long-forgotten track that supposedly led to a treasure hidden in the mountains. For decades, the story was dismissed as a myth, a tale to entertain the young and distract the old from their hardships. But for 5 childhood friends, Farhan, Yusuf, Imran, Kareem, and Salman, the legend was more than a story. It was a challenge. They grew up in the shadows of the rail yard, spending endless days playing near rusting trains and exploring forgotten tracks. Now, in their late 20s, life had pulled them in different directions, but the bond they shared remained unshaken. One fateful evening, they decided to reunite over tea at Kareem's house. Yusuf brought up the iron road, his voice filled with nostalgia. "Do you remember how we used to dream about finding that treasure? What if we actually tried now?" Farhan laughed. "You can't be serious. That's just an old story." "Maybe," Yusuf admitted, "but wouldn't it be worth finding out? Let's do something crazy for once." The others exchanged glances. Life had been monotonous lately, and the idea of an adventure was too tempting to resist. They agreed. The map. The next day, Yusuf arrived with a piece of crumpled paper. It wasn't an official map, but rather a collection of cryptic clues handed down from an old railway worker Yusuf's father had known. "This is all we have," Yusuf said, spreading the paper on the table. Salman squinted at the first clue. "Follow the sunlit rails where the old engine rests." "That sounds like the abandoned rail yard near the southern edge of town," Kareem said. With nothing to lose and everything to gain, the five friends set out that very afternoon, their spirits high. The first clue. The southern rail yard was a graveyard of locomotives, their hulking frames rusting under the weight of time. The air smelled of oil and decay, but the friends pressed on, searching for the old engine. "There it is," Imran said, pointing to a massive steam locomotive covered in graffiti. Carved into the side of the engine was a series of numbers, 23.7. "Coordinates, maybe?" Farhan suggested. Kareem checked his phone. The numbers corresponded to a location on the edge of the forest just outside Greyforge. Excitement bubbled over as they realized the legend was starting to feel real. Into the woods. The forest was dense, its towering trees casting long shadows that made the afternoon light feel dim. Following the coordinates, they reached an old wooden sign half buried in the undergrowth. The sign read, "Iron Road, follow the light." "What light?" Imran asked, looking around. As the sun began to set, a sliver of light pierced through the trees, reflecting off a piece of metal hidden among the bushes. They approached cautiously and found an old railroad spike embedded in the ground. Beside it was another clue etched into a flat stone. "The river will guide you." "That must mean the Grey River," Salman said. They decided to camp for the night and continue at dawn. Around the campfire, they talked about their lives, their struggles, and the joy of being together again. "This feels just like old times," Kareem said, smiling. "It does," Yusuf agreed, "and I think we're on to something big." The river's secret. The next morning, they followed the riverbank, searching for any sign of the iron road. Hours passed with no luck, and doubts began to creep in. "Maybe this really is just a wild goose chase," Farhan muttered. But then Salman spotted something unusual. A bridge partially collapsed into the river. On closer inspection, they saw that the bridge supported rusted train tracks leading into a cavern. "This has to be it," Kareem said, his voice filled with awe. The tracks disappeared into the darkness of the cavern, and the group hesitated. "We've come this far," Yusuf said. "Let's keep going." Into the cavern. The cavern was damp and cold, the sound of dripping water echoing off the walls. Using flashlights, they followed the tracks deeper inside, their excitement mixed with unease. Halfway through, they found a rusted rail car lying on its side. Inside was a box filled with old tools, and among them was another clue. "Steel and stone will reveal the truth." "What does that mean?" Imran asked, frowning. Farhan examined the rail car and noticed that one of its wheels was still attached, though barely. Nearby, there was a stack of loose stones. Maybe we're supposed to use the wheel, Farhan suggested. Working together, they managed to turn the wheel. It was stiff, but with enough effort, it creaked into motion, revealing a hidden compartment beneath the rail car. Inside was a small metal plate engraved with a final clue. The summit holds the key. The ascent. The plate came with a crude drawing of a mountain, which they identified as Stone Peak, the tallest mountain in the area. The climb was steep and treacherous, but their determination outweighed their exhaustion. "This treasure better be worth it," Kareem grumbled, wiping sweat from his brow. At the summit, they found a small clearing with an ancient stone altar. In the center of the altar was a box, locked with a rusted latch. "Here goes nothing," Yusuf said, prying it open with a crowbar. Inside was not gold or jewels, but a journal, old and weathered. Disappointment flickered across their faces until they opened it and began to read. To the true treasure. The journal belonged to a man named Reman, a railway worker from a century ago. He had written about the Iron Road and how it was built not for wealth, but for connection. The workers who built it were from different walks of life, yet they became a family, bound by shared struggles and triumphs. The final entry read, "The Iron Road taught us the value of unity. This journal is my gift to whoever finds it, a reminder that the greatest treasure is the bonds we share." Silence fell over the group as the words sank in. "I guess this was never about gold," Salman said softly. "No," Yusuf replied, closing the journal. "It's about us, about what we've always had." The legacy. As they descended the mountain, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. Inspired by Rahman's story, they decided to give back to Greyforge, starting with the old rail yard. They transformed it into a community center, a place where people could come together, share stories, and build connections. The center's motto, engraved on a plaque, was a quote from Rahman's journal: "The greatest treasure is the bonds we share." Years later, as they sat in the community center, watching children play and families gather, Farhan said, "Do you think Rahman would be proud of what we've done?" Yusuf nodded. "I think he would, and I think we've proven that some treasures are worth more than gold." The legend of the Iron Road lived on, not as a tale of wealth, but as a testament to the enduring power of friendship. For Farhan, Yusuf, Imran, Kareem, and Salman, the journey had been its own reward, a reminder that the most valuable things in life are the connections we make and the memories we create together.